OK, let's move on now to the front cover of Tuesday's Telegraph. Nick, you've got this one?
Yes, and they have an Alzheimer's story, but we're moving on and doing the Badenoch to intervene in gender pay trans row, which is a very interesting story about Kemi Badenoch, however you want to say it. Sorry, Kemi, if I got it wrong. And she's saying there's this absurd new thing where civil servants have been told by the Government Equalities Office, whatever that is, that they should record gender pay gap figures based on how the workers identify rather than their biological sex, thus making the whole thing pointless. And it's kind of bleakly hilarious in that the whole gender pay gap was a fiction anyway, or at least a vast oversimplification. You know, men prefer to work more hours, they choose different jobs. There's multiple factors. They don't literally pay a woman less for the same job. Some cases there are, like freelance negotiations, where it's different. I understand all that. But the pay gap was already a bit silly. But now they've outwoked the pay gap because it's going to be meaningless because you will be able to put your different gender. Or if you don't identify as anything, no gender, you'll be excluded from the data entirely.
I mean, surely, Steve, if they are suggesting that the gender pay gap is to do with systemic sexism, then the actual biological sex of the individuals concerned is a relevant factor.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this story is hilarious. A great way to ruin data. I mean, the pressure that the BBC must be putting on Gary Lineker to come on, change. Because we get a lot of flack about paying men more. Come on, take one for the team, Gary.
Yeah.
If he flips
he could just say he's a woman now. It wouldn't actually be out of character for him. I think he could well go down that route.
He's a woman of colour.
He could probably do it.
But it does mess... Yeah, you're right. It messes with the data. But the data, as you say, was flawed. So this is...
Out of interest, Steve, where do you stand on the gender pay gap? Because I know where Nick stands. He's just made that perfectly clear. But when it comes to this idea, you know, it has been illegal to pay women and men different amounts for the same work for about 50, 60 years. Yep. So it doesn't happen. So is it not the case that the gender pay gap is certainly misperceived or misunderstood?
Yeah, I think it's a flaw in the stats. I don't think it's true to say it never happens. I'm sure it does happen. There are court cases that get brought and you find out that it happened, but nowhere near enough to skew the data enough. You do have to look at other factors about how many hours you work.
Well, it's about jobs that you choose. I mean, women are more likely to take part-time jobs as well, and of course there's the maternity issue.
Actually, that point, I was thinking about this story, the idea that somehow the small subset of people who are trans would somehow be massive earners. Are you sure that this is going to skew the data that much?
Well, maybe it wouldn't, but isn't it sort of the principle of the thing, Nick?
It is. You were sort of vaguely mocking me there. You think the exact same, you just expressed it in more genteel terms.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's the exact same, but said in a nicer way. No, but it's ridiculous. And by the way, the Government Equalities Office, I look at that and just think of Javier Milei. I just think, afuera, get rid of all these useless departments doing nonsense. That's what I say.
Nick is starting to quote Javier Milei now, which is fantastic.